Hey, night owls, restless scrollers, and secret history nerds who swear you'll go to bed after just one more video? Slide a tankard of something warm within reach, dim whatever light source is glowing in your face, and settle in. Before we shuffle through the sawdust and spilled ale of tonight's forgotten centuries, do me a tiny favor. Tap that like button the way a tipsy bard pounds the table for another song. Hit subscribe if you want more midnight journeys, and drop a comment telling me A, where you're tuning in from, and B, the exact time you should have gone to sleep. I love seeing the global constellation of insomniacs lighting up the chat like lanterns over a rowdy courtyard. Ready? Take a breath, loosen your shoulders, and let's drift back to the age when a last call could turn into a last will and testament in the blink of an ale foam-flecked eye. Picture yourself pushing open the warped oak door of the Crooked Goose on a drizzly Thursday night in, say, 1382. The hinge squeals like a piglet that's just realized the feast involves it, and a wave of heat, equal parts hearth fire, body odor, and cheap lamp oil hits your face. Instantly, every storybook notion of a medieval tavern pops like bubbles in ale. No gleaming horns or merry minstrels politely taking requests. Instead, you're greeted by an orchestra of thudding tankards, slurred negotiations over dice, and a lute missing two strings being strummed aggressively off-key. Tables are uneven, benches wobble, and cracks in the shutters leak moonlight in stripes across the floor. Yet there's an energy here, a grin behind the grime that tells you this place is alive and dangerous. Which brings us to tonight's delightfully gloomy topic, the unwritten rules that kept these bubbling cauldrons of chaos from boiling over into outright bloodbaths. Well, most nights. Rule number 1. Never throw the first punch if you can throw the first joke. In a world without HR departments or neighborhood watch apps, humor was your de-escalation toolkit. The tavern served travelers who might be armed, mercenaries nursing grudges, and farmers whose entire year's wages dangled on a single dice toss. That's a volatile brew. So medieval patrons became masters of the laughing insult, a barb wrapped in witty wordplay that let both parties pretend to be amused while measuring each other's shoulders. Call someone a goat kisser outright and you'd get a dagger in the ribs. But accuse them with exaggerated nods and dramatic flair of loving goats more than goats love salt licks. The room snickers, pride is bruised, yet blades stay sheathed. For now. You, dear listener, can practically smell the tension. Spicy sweat, hop-heavy breath, the sharp tang of iron tools hanging at every belt. Rule number 2. Know the floor plan like you know your own shaky pulse. Every regular kept mental maps of exit routes, sturdy beams for back-to-wall positioning, and which tables were bolted down versus liable to flip with a nudge. In the Crooked Goose, that means the far corner under the smoked boar's head. Prime real estate for those who want to watch trouble unfold without wearing it. Travelers learned this quickly. Survey the battlefield before you order. You wouldn't march blind into Flanders. Don't saunter blind into the alehouse. Can you feel the crunch of old straw under your boots as you shuffle toward a bench? Can you sense the watchful eyes of old-timers judging if you'll be tonight's entertainment? Rule number 3. Always buy the minstrel a drink. Not because you crave their tinny rendition of Nest of the Nightingale, but because musicians were, in effect, the tavern's rumor routers and mood thermostats. A happy bard kept ballads flowing and tempers cooled. An insulted bard? They could slip a mocking verse about your questionable parentage into the next tune, and soon the whole room would hoot at you. Humiliation breeds fists faster than thirst breeds drinking. So you slide the minstrel a penny and a half-full mug, give a nod that says no hard feelings, and voila, they become your temporary shield. If blows still fly, they'll strum louder to drown the noise, giving the innkeeper plausible deniability when the sheriff comes sniffing. Rule number 4. Tankards down, hands visible when authority enters. Might be the sheriff's man, might be a church deacon looking to scold backslider souls. But everyone knows you freeze, eyes on the foam rings, until the threat assesses the climate. If you're the poor messenger who didn't pay attention to this rule and you keep swigging, congratulations, you've volunteered as tonight's example of public disorder. Stocks at dawn, maybe a purse fine your grandchildren will still curse about. Yes, the Middle Ages loved visible consequences. You can almost hear the collective clunk of wooden mugs hitting tables as a hooded bailiff steps inside, damp cloak dripping, glare scanning like a hawk. The hush doesn't last long, conversations restart at half volume, but tension hangs like smoke. Rule number 5. Women's words weigh double. Wait, medieval society wasn't exactly progressive, so why this sudden respect? Simple. Tavern maids and alewives had the power to kick you out, cut your drink, or worse, tell the local reeve you'd been insulting the Lord's name. Many a swaggering buck learned the hard way that calling a barmaid sweetmeats could earn a face full of boiling stew. Meanwhile, seasoned brawlers made sure to tip and treat these women as allies. Sneer at them, and next time you need someone to vouch you didn't start the fight, silence will be your doom. Imagine the clatter of a tray as a sharp-eyed alewife wades into 2 growling patrons, ladle held like a mace, glare strong enough to curdle milk. Everyone backs down. Rule number 6. Weapons out, chairs in. Swords were a gentleman's daily wear, but unsheathing inside the alehouse breached sacred etiquette. Too confined, too likely to skewer the wrong target. Fists, tankards, maybe a chair? Acceptable. A dagger at most, and only if the other guy brandished his first. There's a logic. Bruises heal, black eyes fade. The Lord's bailiffs are summoned over bruises. Blood, though? Blood requires paperwork. Well, wax seals at least, and possibly reparations that your harvest can't cover. Picture a burly carter gripping a 3-legged stool like a shield, sizing up a lean soldier flexing callous knuckles. They circle, crowd parts, someone shouts odds. This is civilized mayhem, regulated by unspoken consensus that death simply ruins the fun. Rule number 7. Don't strike the minstrel, the maid, or the innkeeper. Break this rule and every spectator turns predator. There are accounts, St. Albans Chronicles 1426, of hot-headed squires thrashed by entire taprooms after tossing a lute into the fire. A tavern staff were its beating heart. Harming them felt like poisoning your own supper. You can almost taste the collective outrage simmering if a wealthy bully slaps a serving man. Within seconds, trenches become projectiles. A farmer's elbow drives into aristocratic ribs. High-born screams drown in commoner cheers. Call it crowd justice or survival instinct. Either way, that bully crawls out nursing bruises and a brand new humility. Rule number 8. Wagers end the brawl before sunrise. Dawn's slap of reality, chores, market stalls, musters meant nobody wanted to bleed into morning. So fighters often sealed grudges with ridiculous bets. Whoever holds a burning brand the longest, whoever drains a bucket of dragon's brew, whoever recites psalms backward without puking. Loser pays in coin or pride. Winner gains a tail. You can feel the hush as two battered men stand by the hearth, palms gripping sizzling iron spits while the crowd counts heartbeats. Pain replaces anger. Laughter follows. By rooster crow, they're arm in arm staggering home. Religiously hungover, perhaps, but alive. Rule number 9. Mind the hearth. The open fire pit wasn't just for ambiance. It was the tavern's singular heating and cooking source. Knocking embers loose risked torching the whole wooden shell. Thus, any scuffle that stumbled too close prompted an instant truce. Rivals would yank each other clear, then resume punching. Chronicles from Dijon speak of one tavern where fighters paused mid-melee to bucket brigade a fallen torch, then dove right back into fisticuffs. Even adrenaline understood priorities. You can't drink ale inside a heap of ashes. Rule number 10. The door is neutral ground. Once someone is flung or escapes through the entrance, pursuit stalls. Streets have watchmen, neighbors with shutters to slam, mothers who will clout you with breadboards for waking the baby. Chase your foe outside and you invite civic repercussions. Inside, the innkeeper is monarch. Outside, the sheriff is. Savvy pugilists, therefore, aimed to shove enemies out rather than beat them unconscious. Less mess, more chances the victim slinks off, pride punctured, purse intact. Hear the door bang? That's the signal. The room resets, stools upturned, spilled ale absorbed by sawdust. New patrons shuffle in moments later, sniff the air, shrug, and order a brew. The cycle continues. You tip the rim of your mug and taste the room before the ale. Because flavor in a medieval tavern isn't just on your tongue, it's in the gossip fogging the rafters. Across from you, a carpenter with sawdust still tangled in his beard slaps a coin on the dice table, swears by St. Crispin's left shoe, and rolls snake eyes. Everyone groans like a barn door in winter, except the stonemason who rakes in the pot. In that little soundscape, coins clinking, oaths muttered, benches creaking, you can hear the next fight forming, the way a shepherd hears thunder in distant hills. Tonight, we're diving deeper into the code that kept those storms from wiping whole alehouses off the map. So loosen your cloak, smother a yawn, and remember to tap like and subscribe before your eyelids betray you. It's the digital version of buying the storyteller a drink, and believe me, I poured generous refills. First scent of trouble? Ale hitting the floor. Medieval lawmen noted it again and again. Spilled drink was less an accident, more a battle cry. Rule 11 then, liquid on boards equals blades on belts. The instant froth splatters, patrons do a quick threat assessment. Hazel eyes flicking to hand grips, shoulders tensing like crossbow strings. Seasoned drinkers know the instinctive calculus. If the spill came from a shaky old pilgrim, calm him, mop up, carry on. If it came from a cocky newcomer slamming his cup to punctuate a brag, everyone steps back like billiard balls making room for the cue. You can almost feel the wooden planks vibrate beneath your boots as feet shuffle, creating a shallow ring of anticipation. Rule 12. Never mock a man's pilgrimage badge. These little tin or lead trinkets, scallop shells for Compostela, tiny swords for St. Paul, were spiritual passports worn with fierce pride. Tear one off a cloak in jest, and you've torn open his honor. The badge may bend like cheap metal, but his willingness to brain you with a candle stand does not. A chronicler in Lubeck told of a sailor who snapped a pilgrim shell because, quote, he thought heaven was a short ferry ride. That sailor spent the night outside, teeth scattered in the snow, nursing a lesson in piety. Rule 13 goes hand in hand with bruised pride. Insults travel faster than fists. Think medieval Wi-Fi. One sharp quip at the hearth ripples to the bar, up the staircase to rented rooms, out the back door to the privy, and within minutes, everyone's aligned like chess pieces. Which means timing matters. People swung less out of surprise and more out of momentum. Join late and you might punch your future brother-in-law by mistake. Savvy regulars kept ears open while draining ale, mapping alliances in real time. You're smelling smoke? That's merely the brains of quick-thinking peasants firing under floppy felt hats, deciding which side offers fewer broken ribs. Rule 14. Respect the invisible balcony of children. Yes, many taverns doubled as family dining rooms before curfew. Kids chased dogs beneath benches, gleaning crumbs. If a brawl threatened, grown-ups automatically herded little ones behind tables or out the kitchen door. Hurt a child and you wouldn't fear the sheriff, you'd fear every mother wielding ladles like morning stars. So fights shifted, crab-like, away from squealing clusters. To ignore that social buffer zone was tantamount to heresy. Your ears ring with shrill cries, chairs scraping, fists unclenched just long enough to scoop toddlers to safety before re-clenching around tankard handles. Rule 15. Sing before you swing. Sounds ridiculous, but ballads served as emotional lightning rods. When tensions peaked, someone, often the least sober, belted a verse. "Oh Rowan, fair Rowan, she kissed me last June." If the room joined, the fight diffused. If only one faction sang, the other faction's silence set the battleground. Law reports from York mention constables arriving to find two groups mid-brawl still shouting competing refrains of Gaudiamus and Paddy on the Road. Think of it as pre-battle fanfare. Tonight, as dice clatter and pottery rattles, you hear a half-drunk reeve clear his throat. One note flat, and everyone knows where loyalties lie. Rule 16. The innkeeper's dog decides winners. Most alehouses kept a mutt for scraps and rat control. Dogs sense adrenaline. If Growler snaps at your calf, the crowd assumes you started it. A Burgundy ledger from Rouen City Court even records testimony. Master Uvain's hound did bite only the guilty. Clever scrappers tossed sausage bits at the pup mid-fight to influence his verdict. Imagine ducking a haymaker while flinging unchewed bacon behind you. Medieval problem-solving at its finest. Rule 17. Bleeding above the waist is a truce signal. Not because chivalry suddenly bloomed, but because blood on the floor threatened the landlord's purse. Pools of red invited plague rumors and extra tax for sanitation. So the instant someone's brow split, watchers shouted, "Clout him!" meaning press cloth, stop flow, reassess. Fighters often paused, equal parts self-preservation and tavern loyalty. You can taste iron in the smoky air, see ruddy streaks on knuckles, yet feel fists hover like sparrows mid-wing, waiting for the victim to nod that he's steady. Only then does the dance resume, or dissolve into reluctant apologies. Rule 18. Never overturn the dice table. Dice weren't mere entertainment. They were microeconomics, where farm rents, shoe money, and dowry coins changed hands. Flipping the board risked scattering livelihoods into straw. That crossed a moral event horizon. One Melanese edict allowed townsfolk to beat a table toppler until first dawn bell with no legal fallout. Among drinkers, this translated to an unwritten pact. You could accuse someone of loaded bones, snatch the cup, even kick over a chair, but topple the table and you became community property, subject to the sort of communal justice that left you looking like week-old stew. Rule 19 deals with armor, specifically, don't wear it. Mail shirts snag on stools, helms clatter off beams, and you'll drown in your own sweat faster than you can say halfpenny ale. More crucially, armor signaled intent to start trouble. Town ordinances from Bruges to Bologna fined anyone entering a public house harnessed and helmed. Offenders hauled to the stocks still dripping ale, sizzling like bacon inside their own metal skin. So travelers stashed gear in stables, venturing inside with only belt knives, practical but not provocative. Picture a line of rusty hauberks dangling from pegs, dripping rainwater in syncopated planks, while their owners gamble fortunes on the roll of stained cubes. Rule 20. Spend or leave by the second candle. Alewives measured nights by tallow drip. When candle 1 guttered, goodwill flickered. By candle 2's midpoint, credit tabs closed. Fight after candle 2, and any windows you break, chickens you trample, or teeth you swallow come out of your purse. People, unsurprisingly, tried to start fights before the candle, then make peace in time to keep drinking on someone else's bill. Yes, medieval scams could be that petty and that brilliant. Watch the wax pool widen. Feel every heartbeat of flame echo in patrons' twitching eyes. Mid-scroll reminder, because if you've stuck with me this far, you're clearly entranced. Hit that subscribe button like you'd hit the tavern gong that signals fresh ale, and share this video with a friend who thinks bar fight means arguing over karaoke rotation. Trust me, they need perspective. Back to our mayhem. Rule 21. The backdoor barrel is Switzerland. Out behind every tavern squatted a massive, aging cask, sometimes water for extinguishing fires, sometimes fermenting cheap beer. Lean your back to that barrel in a scrap, and no one stabs you. Instead, they demand you step away. Why? Because breaking the barrel meant soaking the yard, spoiling brew, attracting fines from the Brewers Guild. Practical neutrality. Skirmishers jostled, but the moment someone hit the barrel's iron hoops, the crowd parted, shrieking warnings as if a baby were on the floor. You feel the wood's cool curve press your spine, smell malty tang seeping through cracks, and realize you found the tavern's only pacifist. Rule 22. If a monk is present, nobody swears by the Virgin. Monks were often on the road raising funds. They stopped to eat like anyone else. Their presence temporarily rewrote linguistic etiquette. Curse all you want, just swap Mary's name for any pagan deity, cruel enough that even the church wouldn't mind. One chronicle notes sailors shouting, "By Thor's hairy armpit," while Friar Guillaume ate stew nearby, entirely unoffended. Social agility at its weirdest. Rule 23. Water wins wagers. Because ale was safer than well water, drinking plain water signaled bravado bordering on suicidal. Thus, a popular bet: loser drains a mug of warm water from the tavern bucket. Cheers escalate, fists pound tables, loser sips, and sometimes vomits immediately. Watchers roar. But if you refuse the forfeit, you owe everyone a round. Start a fight to escape? That violates the drinking circle pact, and the entire circle turns on you. So many brawls blossomed from men trying to dodge the watery penalty, proving yet again the Middle Ages perfected peer pressure centuries before college fraternities. Rule 24. The ceiling beam is the final judge. If two men couldn't settle who landed the heavier blow, they'd leap to swat the blackened main beam. Higher touch wins. Loser concedes or escalates. Those beams, slick with soot and tallow smoke, became unofficial scoreboards. Palms left greasy prints like phantom signatures. Imagine you hauling yourself onto a bench, feet slipping, fingertips brushing ancient grit while the room chants. Miss the beam, and humiliation stings more than bruises. Some victors offered a hand down. Others kicked the bench aside mid-descent. Depends on whether the alehouse wanted a sequel. Rule 25. Never draw blood on the Sabbath eve. Saturday nights you'd think would be rowdiest, payday's jangle plus tomorrow's rest. Yet parish records show fewer tavern injuries reported on those nights. Why? Everyone dreaded limping into church with fresh wounds, inviting priestly lectures or public penance in a hair shirt. So quarrels late Saturday took on a comedic, almost theatrical style. Open-handed slaps, wrestling holds, flipped caps. Enough spectacle for bragging, minimal bruising for mass. You're hearing the choir rehearsal from the nearby chapel drifting through shutters, mixing oddly with jeers and laughter. An undercurrent of conscience humming beneath revelry. Rule 26 brings us to animals again, specifically cats. Every tavern cat was unofficially property of whichever patron had meat scraps. Harm the cat, invite curses from alewife to chimney sweep. A Cambridge anecdote tells of a knight who kicked a tabby, slipped and spilled cider, and broke his pride in twain. Locals swore the cat hexed him. Whether magic or karma, the lesson stood: treat furred guardians kindly. In fights, cats became chaos agents, darting underfoot so adversaries tripped before landing lethal blows, inadvertently enforcing the don't kill rule. Rule 27. Outsider referee. When parties hailed from different parishes, they appointed a neutral drinker, often the loudest jester, to decide fairness. Think medieval UFC judge with zero credentials besides volume. He'd slam a pitcher, declare, "First to 3 knocks," and bang a spoon for each tumble. Objective? Not at all. Entertaining? Extremely. Lose under biased judging and you might roar injustice, but room consensus overrode ego. Social cohesion trumped technical accuracy. Rule 28. Scars are stories, not shames. Show a scar, tell its tale, and the crowd awards you amnesty from new cuts that night. Peasants flashed arrow tracks from Cressy. Merchants displayed boil lancing marks, anything gruesome enough. People leaned close, candlelight flickering on puckered skin, collective ooh bonding everyone. Fighting someone already marked by fate seemed redundant, maybe unlucky. If you ever time-traveled, friend, strip your sleeve and produce any surgical line. They'll buy you ale, not break your nose. Rule 29. Pay the piper in beer. Musicians finished sets expecting payment in froth, not coin. Stiff them, and their next tune could be a dirge timed to your stumbling. Worse, they'd leave early, letting silence settle. A vacuum fights eagerly fill. An English statute indirectly acknowledged this, fining landlords whose taverns lacked music on feast eves for inciting unrest. Can you hear the sudden hush when a disgruntled fiddler packs up? That hush is fight bait. So even stingy landlords plopped pitchers at the minstrel's feet, protecting both peace and profits. Rule 30, and perhaps my favorite, the morning after belongs to nobody. At dawn, all grudges expire. You wake on the straw-littered floor, head ringing like cathedral bells, and the man you tried to throttle is snoring on your shoulder. Custom dictates you share a bowl of pottage, exchange foggy apologies, then march into daylight as comrades, or at least co-survivors. Keep smoldering, and the village tithing man drags you both before the manorial court for disturbing the peace. Medieval folk, for all their savage evenings, respected the sacred reset. Imagine pulling your cloak tighter against dawn chill, nodding to last night's rival, and trudging toward your field side by side, silence speaking volumes. You wake to the smell of last night's fire still clinging to your hair and the distant jangle of a peddler's bell somewhere beyond the shutters. Your cheek is pressed to a tabletop sticky with dried ale, but what jolts you upright is the sudden thunk of a boot heel beside your ear. Someone started sweeping benches back into place, and that means today's first round of bargaining and brawling is already loading in the doorway. Stretch your shoulders, roll the crick from your neck, and let's wade even deeper into the secrets that kept tavern melees from turning into miniature civil wars. Rule 31. Breakfast soaks the grudges. It's not enough that dawn wipes the slate. Dawn requires bread. A good innkeeper sets out trenchers of coarse rye and a communal pot of onion broth before the first chatter of sparrows. Hungry men swing faster, bleed worse. Fed men decide they'd rather gamble than grapple. So you line up, hands crusted with sawdust and sleep, and ladle steaming stock into a chipped bowl. The baker's boy stands sentry with a peel like a quarterstaff, daring anyone to shove ahead of widows or apprentices. Break the queue, win a cracked rib from the lad, and nobody will protest. After all, he just enforced breakfast law. Rule 32. The broom is the badge of office. Whoever sweeping has temporary sovereignty over furniture and floor space. If he nudges your boot, you move, no questions, lest the whole house label you dust-dumb. A Bruges city roll tells of 2 silk dyers flogged because they refused to shift while charwomen swept embers into a bucket, an act deemed obstructing the hearth, punishable by public dunking. You've never seen grown men squeal quite like dyers in winter river water. Chill memory alone persuades you to lift your mug when the broom bristles near. Rule 33 pivots us back to wagers. Scar stories grew into a currency all their own. A fresh wound earns ale. An old wound earns silence. Because if you're still bragging about that sword nick from 5 Easters ago, patrons will slip away, abandoning you to the cat's disinterested stare. To keep an audience, each raconteur sweetens the tale with ever more elaborate detail. Lightning striking the tower, a nun brandishing a meat cleaver, the king's own falcon screeching overhead. The moment another drinker coughs, "Liar," the room tightens like a bowstring. But fists don't fly, not yet. There's an arbitration ritual. The accused must produce a physical artifact. Maybe the bent coin the blade deflected, a saint's medal cracked by impact, a tuft of hair still braided by his beloved the night before. Produce proof and you receive a consolatory round. Fail and you owe the room 3 measures of the cheapest ale. Most fights die at the artifact stage because paying 3 measures is humiliation enough. Rule 34. Borrowed steel must return bloodless. Knives were tools first, cutting cheese, scoring bread, trimming candle wicks. So loaning your blade was common courtesy. But if the borrower drew blood with it, a stain of liability fell on both of you. Guild statutes in Cologne required the lender and borrower to appear together before the alderman after any wounding to sort the burden of the blade, usually a fine or public penance. In social terms, that meant you watched your blade like a hawk. Should a stranger request it, you might test his intentions with a riddle, an oath, or a joke only locals get. Fail the test? No knife. Pass, and you'd better keep the edge away from flesh, or you're buying the smith a new grindstone and mead for the whole shop. Rule 35. Women decide when the music stops. Many alewives ran their own houses. Their voices cut through din sharper than any bell. When the brewer's daughter struck the timbre frame in a quick triple tap, musicians folded immediately, and that meant no more dancing, which meant no more spinning collisions of elbows and pitchers. Rabble-rousers who tried to coax one more tune quickly felt the dowel end of the timbre on their knuckles. Local courts rarely questioned such discipline. They understood that a tavern run by a woman kept order better than half the town watch. Contemporary pilgrims' diaries are filled with admiration for Mistress Anne's command of riotous men, crediting her timing with staving off fatal feuds between Flemish clothiers and English drovers. Rule 36. Foreigners drink last, but leave first. Hospitality demanded they be welcomed. Practicality confined their revels to a carefully curated timeline. Fresh off the road, strangers reek of uncertainty. They might carry new fashions, new jokes, new plagues. Locals gauge threat levels during daylight, seat visitors near windows, and ensure they walk out before the second candle is half spent. Outsiders who resist early exit earn an escort. 2 burly lads who claim they just need to show you the shortcut. And after 3 alley turns, you're at the hostelry gates, none the wiser. You're listening to the latch clack behind them, the innkeeper sighing relief, and the benches reshuffling outward like a sea filling back into place. Rule 37. Ashes mark surrender. In many regions, the hearth ash bucket doubled as white flag. Tip ashes onto your head, smear your cheeks, and the brawl halts long enough to let you toddle out under mock cheers of powder face. Breakers of this sanctuary rule were seen as oath breakers, liable to lose 3 fingers. That penalty explains why, even amidst flying crockery, a soot-streaked opponent could shuffle through swinging fists untouched. Taverns loved the spectacle. Ash-covered retreats became comedic relief, a palate cleanser between rounds of more serious scuffling. Rule 38. The bench counts to 10. Some disputes boiled down to brute strength. Instead of grappling all over the floor, combatants lifted a stout bench by its ends and held it at eye level while onlookers counted aloud to 10. First to droop lost, saving everyone's splinter fragments and spilled ale. Strong men trained for this. Bakers, used to hefting dew boards, excelled. There's a painting in a French priory margin depicting two grinning monks performing the bench test, with the Latin caption, Fortitudo pane nascitur, strength is born of bread. Rule 39 introduces us to the secret justice of the ale-yard latrine. If a quarrel couldn't die indoors, too much pride, too much coin at stake, combatants were escorted to the rear pit latrine, out of sight and nose range of patrons. There they traded a single blow each. Witnesses noted who stayed standing. Loser tipped backward into the muck, stripped of dignity, argument, and often boots. The winner trudged back inside, but couldn't wash till dawn, wearing the opponent's stench as proof he'd fought fairly. Want to picture it? Cold mud-sucking ankles, half-moon sky above. The unforgettable slapstick justice echoing off wattle fencing. Rule 40. Miracles pause everything. A sudden comet, none passing by, or lute string snapping to form a perfect cross. Any omen people judged divine compelled immediate ceasefire. Fighters dropped grips, crossed themselves, and donated coins to the nearest poor soul, hoping to offset wrath from above. In 1361 Bologna, chroniclers recount a bar blaze extinguished when patrons doused flames with ale. They interpreted the survival of a tiny painted Madonna behind the hearth as a sign, and fights ceased there for a week. Taverns might milk such miracles, keeping the relic on display to attract pilgrim coin. Rule 41. The debt slate resets monthly unless you fought the tavern staff. Landlords kept chalk tallies on wallboards. At month end, they erased most scrawls to keep regulars liquid. But if you'd lifted a hand to a serving maid or broken the alewife's ladle, your debt calcified harder than mortar. Pay in coin or labor, hauling barrels, chopping wood, before you were served another drop. This produced the odd spectacle of bruised troublemakers piling firewood at dawn, sweating out prior misdeeds while inhaling breakfast aromas of barley porridge they couldn't yet buy. Rule 42. Ghosts get a seat. Every establishment knew at least one murdered traveler or drunken bricklayer who died in a collapse. When a chair tipped over unprovoked, custom reserved it for the restless spirit. Shove the chair upright and laughter turns cold. Rumors swirl that you invited the specter's ire. Better to pour a finger of ale onto the floorboards and say, "Here's to old Rolf." Brawls sometimes broke out when skeptics mocked the ritual, only to be blamed for any later misfortune. Sour ale, lost dice streaks, even miscarrying sows. Superstition thus acted as social glue and hazard sign at once. Rule 43. The Chiming Coin Challenge. Flick a silver penny so it lands ringing on a platter. That's an open call for an arm wrestle tournament. Prize equal to every penny added by onlookers. Refuse a challenge after issuing it, and you forfeit the pot and your reputation. During tournaments, all other fights halt. Arm wrestles are sanctioned mayhem, temporarily monopolizing audience bloodlust. Sweat beads on forearms, candle wax drips onto the platter. coins glitter like tiny suns in flickering light. By tacit accord, tournament injuries don't count as tavern injuries. No one fetches the constable for a fractured wrist earned honestly over the platter. Rule 44. Almond oil for bruises, vinegar for cuts. Behind every alewife stands a pantry doubling as apothecary. Patrons trust her remedies more than the surgeons saw. Monks noted recipes: chamomile mash for knuckles, rabbit fat bomb for cracked ribs. Drinkers line up after scuffles, grimacing as she dabs stinging vinegar along a cheekbone. Payment? A kiss to the jar of St. Bridget's relic or a whispered promise to buy double next visit. Her ministrations transform violence into loyalty. She stitches the social wound along with the flesh. Rule 45. Candle girls calculate the bill. Young relatives of the innkeeper circulate with trays of stubs. Each stub tallies around. You snap the stub if you threw a punch. She pockets it as service fee, later swapped for sweet cakes. Snap too few, and witnesses indict you in jesting sing-song. Snap, or the Lord'll slap. It's a bookkeeping system nobody questions, for the candle girls remember every face. Cross them, and you'll find your bench mysteriously vanishing, your seat replaced by the wobbly three-legger nobody wants. Rule 46. The minstrel's revenge ballad. Offend the fiddler, and tomorrow's market square rings with a new ditty naming you Sir Leaky Breeches, who couldn't fell a piglet. Reputation mattered. A mocking song could ruin trade. Hence, even mid-brawl, men shielded musicians like sacred vessels. One record from Tielt tells of a butcher who accidentally elbowed a lute. He paid 3 whole florins for repairs, lest the bard compose his downfall. Rule 47. Linens speak louder than weapons. If a fight grew lethal, staff flung fresh linen cloths between combatants. Blood on white linen carried heavy wergild fines. Hitting that barrier equaled striking the host herself. The cloth, sometimes a table runner, sometimes a bedsheet, fluttered like a surrender flag. Most combatants froze. Nobody wanted to underwrite a funeral and replace household linens. Picture a scarred mercenary lowering his dagger as soft flax settles across his forearm, the room exhaling relief. Rule 48. Pickpockets are open season. In melee, cut purses thrive. But if caught, even sworn enemies unite to pummel the thief. City guards applauded such street justice. Inns displayed stolen knife collections as trophies, handles notched for each foiled pocket rat. Before leaving, patrons patted pouches, clasped cloak cords, then toasted the Brotherhood of Honest Thieves, an ironic pledge to rob no one under that particular roof. Rule 49. The ale conner is untouchable. Appointed by town councils, conners tested ale quality, floating a hunk of bread to gauge density. Harm him and your tavern lost license, your whole district paid fines. During fights, the conner raised his tasting spoon like a bishop's crozier. The sea of violence parted. He might sip calmly while 2 lads throttled each other a yard away, secure in civic immunity. You taste envy with your ale. Imagine drinking for free and strolling out unsmudged every night. Rule 50. The last for tonight's roll call. Laugh loudest, live longest. Chroniclers notice survivors of barroom warfare weren't the strongest, but the quickest to laugh, diffusing tension, buying time, winning allies. A sharp quip about a man's own foolish stance could disarm his foe faster than any wrist lock. That's why jesters, jonglers, and even humble potboys honed wit like daggers. The medieval tavern taught a truth still relevant. In rooms thick with potential violence, humor isn't decoration, it's armor. You haul yourself off the sticky tabletop just in time to dodge a fresh keg rolling across the floor. Two coopers push it like a siege ram while grinning patrons hop aside. The innkeeper's wife whistles, and suddenly the commotion tilts toward preparation rather than pandemonium. Because once the fourth candle of the evening sputters alive and shadows stack thick against the rafters, the unwritten codes sharpen into their night shift versions, more dangerous, more lucrative, and frankly, more entertaining. Let's step back into the din together and unspool another skein of those secret tavern laws that kept the peace precisely by promising it would shatter at any moment. First order of nightfall business. The ledgers close, the ledgers reopen. At sunset, the alewife chalks a line beneath every tab. Morning debts now roll into tomorrow's reckoning. Anything poured after that mark is moon credit, a separate account payable only in silver or service by cockcrow. Moon credit is risky, exciting, and magnetic to gamblers who swear their luck changes with lunar phases. Fail to settle by dawn, and you're assigned a chore from the dreaded pitch list. Scrubbing latrine seats with salt brine, collecting chamber pot slops from attic lodgers, or escorting drovers' herds through the north gate at sunrise. No one wants manure duty before breakfast. Hence, players throw dice with a manic edge, the rattle sounding like clattering teeth, each man wagering double to outrun the chores creeping closer. Moon credit sets the stage for Rule 51. Dice disputes demand the candleblade test. Two gamblers suspect loaded cubes. They place the dice on a pewter plate beside a taper. A short dagger is heated in the flame until it glows dull orange. Then, with a hiss, it presses onto the die. Honest bone or antler smells of scorched horn and stays firm. Beeswax-filled trick dice blister, ooze, and sometimes split, spilling pellets of lead. If the cheat's dice run, he runs too, and he'd better reach the threshold before onlookers finish chanting pace, pace, pace. The pace chant counts 9 strides. Any slower, and the crowd is allowed to trip, cuff, or pants him before ejection. City watchmen love the candleblade test. It spares them paperwork and provides the tavern with a nightly morality play. Rule 52. Card games freeze when clergy enter. Not out of piety, out of profit. Priests often carry church coffers for alms. Gamblers invite them to bless the deck and then gently fleece them in friendly hands. But taverns know ecclesiastical courts can ruin a license. So, when a tonsured head ducks beneath the beam, every card slaps face down, coins vanish, and the group breaks into harmless conversation about crop yields. The clergyman, suspicious, orders weak wine, listens, and drifts out. The instant his sandals scuff beyond the door, the dealer raps twice on the table, and cards bloom again like spring leaves. Break the freeze early, say by nudging a coin, and you'll be short-sheeted by your own comrades, wrapped in linens, dunked in the basin outside, and left to ponder impatience. Rule 53. governs the exchange of insults above a whisper. Low mutters are safe. Once your voice lifts past the clack of tankards, you've launched an audible challenge. Challenges come in colors: green for mockery, brown for accusation, red for outright threat. Patrons visualize colors by custom. Shout someone's lineage is half goat and half brewer's drab? Green. Claim he watered ale? Brown. Call him an oath-breaker? Brown shading red. Promise to feed his ears to the landlord's hound? Red. Each color dictates response times. Green must be answered within 3 jests, brown within 3 heartbeats, red immediately. Failure to respond cedes moral ground, and bystanders shift their benches away from the loser, isolating him like a plague cart. The isolation stings harder than fists. Many scuffles exist solely to dodge that social quarantine. Rule 54. Stools are shields. Benches are rams. Everyone learns furniture tactics early. A 3-legged stool whips up to parry thrown jugs and to create space amid crushes. But benches, long, heavy, meant for 6 backsides, transform into siege weapons. 2 men will hoist a bench, rush a knot of adversaries, and bowl them like 9-pins. The bellowed warning, "Bench up," is enough to topple half-drunk spectators who fling themselves flat. That call carries legal weight. Ignore it, and the bench crew is not liable for cracked shins. Municipal statutes from Ghent label benches recognized implements of crowd suppression, effectively granting them temporary exempt status as blunt ordnance. Tavern ceilings bear scars where bench legs punched timber, each pit a tally of past stampedes. Rule 55 addresses women's deployment of the pitcher pinch. All maids pinch the lip of a ceramic pitcher between thumb and first finger. That pinch is silent authority. She raises it level with her chin, battle-ready height, when brawls block her path. Even muscle-bound mercenaries know the pitcher pinch means stand aside or wear scalding wort. The technique draws no accusations of assault. Any scalding is deemed self-inflicted by obstinacy. Consequently, patrons part faster for a petite barmaid than for a town sergeant in steel spalders. Travelers marvel at this hydraulic power dynamic. Fragile jug becomes drawbridge pass. Rule 56. There's 1 door for running and 1 door for ransom. Larger taverns boast a backrush door, barred on the outside, but easily unlatched within. Fleeing fighters burst through, sprint alleyward, and circle to safety. The front door, however, is the ransom portal. Constables wait there when summoned, collecting fines or hostages. A crafty scrapper feigns flight toward the backrush, but veers to the cellar trap, hiding among turnips until peace returns. Everyone knows the map. Accidents seldom happen. If you see a newcomer hesitate, you guide him. Neighbors may punch faces, but they won't let a man blunder into the ransom line without warning. That small courtesy keeps vendettas manageable. Rule 57. Singing nullifies slaps. A minstrel can interrupt escalating slaps by striking up a bawdy chorus. Participants must either join or risk being labeled tone-deaf, an insult oddly heavier than coward. One chronicled night in York, 2 masons squared off, palms raised. The minstrel launched the Miller's Mildew. Masons sang grudgingly, slaps downgrading to rhythmic shoulder bumps, then laughs. Later they partnered in a linen trade. Thus, song cures certain ills better than herbs. Rule 58 concerns the hidden patron upstairs. Some wealthy clients prefer to watch chaos from a screened balcony, wagering on outcomes with the landlord. They send wooden tokens down a chute, red side up to prolong a fight, white side to douse it. The landlord signals with subtle lamp tilts. Tilt left, keep punching. Tilt right, call the bench crew. Ordinary drinkers seldom notice, but you, keen observer, might spy a glimmer of coin through lattice slats. That unseen puppeteer explains sudden mood shifts, as when a roaring fray inexplicably fizzles into shared toasts. White token sent, landlord tilts right, maids scatter bread, conflict evaporates. Rule 59. Pets are Switzerland. Cats, beer dogs, even the brewer's geriatric goose waddle freely. Striking an animal draws universal wrath. A chronicled case from Lübeck details a brawler who kicked a one-eyed terrier. The crowd stripped him to breeches, coated him in spilled mash, and rolled him in threshing dust. He left town later that night. The animal's immunity turns them into living referees. When dogs growl, tension mounts. When cats nap atop barrels, peace reigns. You learn to read fur more than faces. Rule 60. Red wax seals a truce. Many merchants carry sticks of sealing wax. Break one, melt a drop on your thumb, and press it to your opponent's sleeve. Instant armistice. The wax mark holds till sunrise, after which grievances may resume. Failure to respect wax earns excommunication from every tavern in the guild's network. A traveler so shunned ends up sleeping in stables, surviving on cold pottage. The wax, then, is thicker than blood, a congealed promise visible in lamplight, cooling as tempers cool. Rule 61 dives into the shadow market of broken teeth. Local barbers purchase freshly knocked molars, they later insert them into wealthier mouths during primitive dental grafts. A prize front tooth can fetch a groat. Consequently, some brawlers angle punches to shatter incisors without concussing the jaw. Precision brutality. If you're missing a tooth come dawn, check the barber's pouch. You might literally buy back your own smile. The grisly trade persists because city fathers tax it, funneling coin into orphan bread funds. Thus, violence feeds charity in a twisted alimentary loop. Rule 62 describes peace pins. Seamstresses repair torn tunics on site, swift as battlefield medics. Their payment? The newly mended shirt's wearer must display a bone pin engraved with a dove. That pin buys one free drink for the seamstress in any tavern. Refuse the pin and she'll unravel your stitches with a tug, an artisan's spite bolt. The Peace Pin program reduces lingering grudges. Stitched clothes restore dignity. Pins advertise who's been humbled, and seamstresses stay flush with ale. Rule 63. The lid spoon verdict. Kitchens simmer a cauldron of bean stew after midnight. Two disputants each lift a spoonful, blow thrice, and slurp. Whoever first grimaces at heat lacks fire, losing the argument. The trick? Coat your tongue with cold ale beforehand. Novices scald mouths, veterans win points without swinging. Street poets compare the lid spoon to trial by fire, but note it leaves no orphans, only blisters and bruised pride. Rule 64 sets an age cap on mayhem. Past 50 winters, men must appoint a proxy pugilist, usually a nephew, to fight in their stead. The elder walks among benches proclaiming, "Proxy, proxy," tapping a candidate's shoulder. That youth gains the elder's purse if victorious, but inherits debts if beaten. Families treat proxy selection like knighthood. A poor choice blackens lineage. Observers enjoy the generational drama, betting whether young blood can carry old grudges. Rule 65. Cask tapping immunity. Tapping a fresh barrel is high ceremony. While the spigot hammers in, no blows may land within 10 strides of the cask, lest vibration waste ale. Brawls pause automatically. Enemies lean on each other, breathing hard, watching amber foam froth into pitchers. Once flow steadies, host toasts the room, and combat resumes, often with improved tempers after a swallow of the new batch. Rule 66 catalogs prank projectiles. Throwing stool legs is vulgar. Artisans prefer symbolism. Bakers hurl chilled dough lumps. They hit hard, burst flour, and smell comforting. Coopers lob wooden hoops that clang like church bells. Butchers flip pig bladders, inflated for sausage casings. Disgusting, yes, but light and unlikely to maim. Each guild's projectile telegraphs identity. Cross-guild clashes resemble a carnival of airborne calling cards. Rule 67. Midnight Confession Hour. When church bells toll 12, one corner of the tavern becomes an impromptu confessional. A tired priest might sit behind an upended barrel draped in sackcloth. Fighters kneel, mumble sins, receive penance of 3 Ave Marias and a donation, usually whatever coins survived gambling. Having confessed, they're forbidden from rejoining combat until dawn. This allows battered bodies respite and the tavern a chance to mop floors. Rule 68. Exit by song trail. To smuggle a wooed partner home unmolested, you lead them out while a trusted friend belts a ballad with provocative lyrics, drawing gazes. The couple slips away under cover of laughter. Distraction singers train for volume and risque phrasing. A good one commands free ale. If the couple is spotted, the singer forfeits fee and risks being dunked headfirst in the horse trough for botched cloakwork. Rule 69. Final pour foretells tomorrow's weather. A ladle of rinse water tossed into the hearth coals hisses. 3 pops predict rain, 2 sun, 4 wind. Patrons adjust travel plans accordingly. Doubters still note the hiss with half-closed eyes. Because if you ignore the omen and ride into a storm, the tavern keeps the right to laugh at you roundly next time. Rule 70. Pay the cat. Before shutters bar tight, someone must slide a sliver of salt pork onto the windowsill for the resident mouser. Forget, and you risk a plague of rats gnawing barrel hoops loose. The cat snack is communal insurance. Even drunks contribute scraps. More than one tavern tale ends with a remorseful brawler creeping back to slip bacon fat beneath the moon, whispering apology to feline judgment. Rule 71. Bedrolls off by sunrise plus 3 knocks. The first knock is the innkeeper's broom handle on the ceiling beam, a courtesy. The second is his youngest nephew rattling door latches, a warning. The third is the alewife flinging chamber pot slops from the balcony, an eviction. Regulars time their wake-up to the broom. Travelers oversleep to the nephew. Fools meet the slops and spend the morning scraping smell from jerkins. The sequence keeps traffic flowing so fresh coins, not fermented odor, define the room. Rule 72. Broken crockery becomes currency. Any tankard shattered after dawn is collected in a wicker bin. By midday, the ceramic shards are weighed, and whoever contributed the heaviest heap is fined a farthing per ounce. The proceeds purchase lamp oil for the coming night, literally paying for tomorrow's chaos. Veterans deliberately smash thin-walled cups to keep totals low. Novices break pewter-rimmed mugs and sponsor the whole lighting budget. An early education in material science, courtesy of negative incentive. Rule 73. The Peacemaker's Tally. There is always one poor soul, often last night's loudest voice, appointed peacemaker by drawing the shortest barley straw at breakfast. His job, roam table to table, collecting apologies, IOUs, and ear-pinching revenges that might reignite after dusk. He records grievances in chalk on a slate board hung behind the bar, marking each with cryptic icons: a cracked lute for ruined music, a dripping cask for spilled ale, a tiny boot for stepped toes. When he settles a dispute, he draws a circle around the icon and wipes it clean. Should any unresolved icon remain by supper, the parties must duel in the alley with flour-filled bladders. The loser buys dinner for the winner, and the peacemaker drinks free. By forcing feuds into flour, the tavern averts steel. Spectators adore the white-plumed alley duels. They compare splatter patterns like priests reading entrails. Rule 74. Every noon, the truth kettle sings. A copper pot of water, herbs, and a ladle of yesterday's leftover mead is set to boil. Patrons gather, each dropping a single copper into the brew as an entry fee. One by one, they sip and confess a secret rumor. Anything from a bishop's mistress to a baker's sawdust loaf. The innkeeper's wife judges believability. A convincing rumor earns the teller 2 coppers back. A dud loses his coin. By sunset, the kettle's takings equal a modest fortune, funding roof repairs no official tithe could cover. And because rumors are paid for, they are valued. Listeners commit them to memory, turning the tavern into the county's humming telegraph. Rule 75 governs the stairwell court. The narrow staircase to the rented rooms doubles as a tribunal between the meal rush and the supper surge. Complain to the host? He sends you to the stair, where 3 impartial elders, men too arthritic to brawl, too proud to nap, listen to grievances. The accuser and accused stand one step apart, never on the same step, symbolizing moral elevation. After arguments, the elders render judgment by leaning either left, innocent, or right, guilty. Leaning forward signals both fools pay each other around. No appeals exist. Tourists initially balk at being tried by wobbling grandfathers. Locals respect the system because fines stay small and verdicts come faster than any town hall clerk could scratch records. Rule 76. The well rope is sacred. Draw water from the courtyard well at dawn or noon only. These white hours limit bucket traffic and guarantee clear water before back alley laundresses taint it with dye. Fill a mug outside white hours and you're tasked with hauling 4 extra buckets, 2 for kitchen, 2 for stable yard. As you pass, the stable hands chant, "Wet back, dry throat," a reminder that rules beat thirst. Compliance ensures the stew tastes like mutton, not muddy hoof. Rule 77 introduces the quill box lottery. The tavern keeps a small locked wooden box near the hearth. Inside lie goose quills stamped with tiny ink symbols. Mid-afternoon, the box opens. Each patron draws one quill blind. Match the stamp to the scroll displayed above the mantel and you win its privilege. Maybe one free singing request, or choose the bread crust ends. But there's always one black quill, the forfeit. Its holder must perform the day's dirtiest task, scraping last night's wax drippings from benches or fishing corks out of rain barrels. Regulars whisper that the black quill feels colder. Novices never believe it until the chill slides between fingers. Rule spice tax. Travelers flaunt foreign pepper, ginger, or saffron, sprinkling them onto meat to show off wealth. The tavern enforces a pinch for the pot levy. Before anyone seasons their portion, they flick a pinch into the communal stew cauldron. Refuse, and the cook's ladle develops a mysterious hole when serving your bowl. Broth dribbles out, leaving you chewing dry oats. The spice tax elevates ordinary fare into legend. Pilgrims detour miles just to taste a stew rumored to contain cinnamon from Alexandria and fennel from Lombardy, all donated beneath travelers' pride. Rule 79 revolves around window tokens. On clear afternoons, shafts of sunlight hit specific knots in the floorboards, the gold squares. Any patron whose mug sits entirely within a gold square drinks under house protection. No wagers accepted, no insults allowed. Why? Sunlit mugs advertise clarity. To spill sunlight's gift is sacrilege. Thus, smart patrons nudge mugs until just an inch of base glows, essentially buying a temporary ceasefire. The effect expires when clouds roll in. A sudden overcast has sparked more than one surprised scuffle. Rule 80. Broomline duels. When tempers spark while benches are occupied by mealtime families, combatants must duel outside, but not with blades. The innkeeper thrusts an old hearth broom between them. They grip opposite ends and wrestle, each trying to shove bristle into opponent's face. Onlookers lay wagers of bread crusts or boiled eggs. First sneeze decides the victor. Broomline duels leave egos bruised, noses dusty, but torsos unpunctured. The City Watch applauds any mechanism that swaps swords for straw. Rule 81 guards the ledger of lost things. A small calfskin journal chained behind the bar lists every item found on the floor. Rings, garters, carved dice, love letters. The owner must claim within 3 sunrises, or the item enters the tavern's treasure chest, auctioned monthly to balance any unpaid moon credit. Tales swirl of a woodcutter who lost his brass-bound prayer book, only to buy it back and discover the barmaid's annotation, a heart drawn around his name. They married next Lent. Thus, misplacing objects can realign destinies. Some patrons accidentally drop kerchiefs in hopes of narrative. Rule 82. Empty belly bluffing. During midday dice, hungry players chew hazelnuts to hide stomach growls. Noise of cracking shells masks hunger, suggesting wealth enough to gamble with full belly. Observers watch the floor. Too many shells signal deception, and opponents raise stakes mercilessly until the bluffer folds, scurrying off for crusts. The shell pile becomes a graph of desperation, letting canny gamblers ride waves of confidence. Rule 83 pertains to itinerant physicians peddling cures. By law of the Ale Guild, a tavern may host one quack at a time. He pays entrance by treating the eldest regular for free, usually a bum knee from bench collisions. Then he hawks remedies: boiled toadstone against poisons, ground staghorn for vigor. Purchasers must demonstrate faith by singing a verse while swallowing. If they can't finish the verse, money refunded, physician fined an extra ale. The sing to swallow rule weeds out concoctions too foul to gulp, thus sparing the tavern a reputation for brewing worse drafts than the brewer. Rule 84. Fire tongue payment. The blacksmith's apprentice stops by each afternoon with tongs hot from the forge, a glowing horseshoe clamped between jaws. He exchanges one cooling horseshoe for yesterday's burnt lamp wicks. Charcoal residue helps temper steel. The trade occurs in silence. Patrons clear a path, knowing sparks leap like gossip. The fire tongue march, as children call it, signals shift change. Day drinkers finish cups. Night shufflers drift in behind the apprentice, stepping on still warm footprints. Rule 85 states that any child who retrieves a rolling barrel hoop from the muddy lane may claim a sip of small beer and the right to ask one question of any adult present. The adult must answer truthfully or provide the child a penny. Innocent queries often unmask secrets more quickly than accusations. Last month, a boy asked why two merchants slept in separate beds but wore matching tokens. Their blush spoke volumes. The penny jar grew heavier. Rule 86 tackles sealing messages. The planks above are a palimpsest of suit-written notes you can read only when lamplight flickers just so. Patrons scrawl business offers, confessions, or philosophical riddles using singed feather tips. Morning broom handle rarely reaches them, so messages accumulate. One riddle: what has 6 legs at dawn, 8 at noon, and none at night? Sparked a week-long debate until a shepherd solved it. A tavern table before, during, and after a brawl. He earned free stew for wit. Sealing scribbles thus operate as memory, bulletin board, and intellectual arena. Rule 87. The silence slice. During supper, the cook carves one slice of bread thicker than all others and drops it butter side down on the lowest shelf. Whoever retrieves it must eat in complete silence. If successful, they receive a dram of the landlord's private brandy. Failure, speaking even one word, forfeits the dram and duties them to wash dishes. Stoic travelers relish this gamble. Locals slip whispered jokes, trying to break resolve. The slice tests patience in a room designed for clamor. Rule 88 warns, never wager on a drover's dog. Sheep drovers breed dogs to win, and they train them in subtle paw taps, signaling dice rolls. One tap means lift the cup quickly, good numbers. 2 taps, stall, bad roll. Outsiders who bet against drover-dog duos lose shirts. The tavern allows the con for 2 reasons. Drovers spend heavy after market day, and the spectacle draws crowds. Yet, if a drover cheats a fellow drover, the innkeeper bans both dog and master for a season. Fairness within the fraternity. Rule 89. String-bound promises. Many deals finalize by tying a frayed string around each signatory's little finger, knotting twice, then snipping the knot free. Each man pockets his fragment. Later, they re-knot pieces to renegotiate terms. Break a promise, and your string burns in the hearth. The innkeeper oversees the ritual, stoking flames so all witness trust reduced to ash. Rule 90 introduces the ghost seat. One stool, painted pale gray, must remain empty after sunset. Legend says it honors a mason crushed when the fireplace collapsed decades ago. Practicality says it offers spare seat for sudden officials. Either way, sit there and ale spoils in your cup. Drinkers swear it tastes of mortar. The stool's emptiness shapes traffic flow, channeling bodies like a rock in a stream. Rule 91. The encore toll. If musicians play past the third encore, patrons toss not coins, but candle stubs, currency of light. Minstrels gather wax, trade it to the chandler for fresh lute strings. The tavern profits in ambience. Every thrown stub shortens the night, coaxing patrons to order another round before darkness envelops. Rule 92 codifies departure etiquette. When leaving after dusk, you must tap the lintel thrice. Signal to watchers within that you exit willingly, not hauled by foes. Skip the taps, and 2 stout guards sprint to confirm safety. Travelers once mocked the superstition. Then a merchant disappeared between door and street, and only 3 drops of blood on the threshold told tale. Ever since, even skeptics tap wood like drum roll. Rule 93 is the spark gift. Strike flint to light your neighbor's pipe, and he owes you a story, true or fabricated. The exchange keeps silences from souring into suspicion. Some tales become tavern lore, repeated until original teller forgets whether he experienced them or invented them. After 50 retellings, story and spark join the archives, etched on ceiling, sung by minstrels, woven into chair carvings. Rule 94 concerns dawn exodus. The final patrons depart single file, never side by side. Twin shadows resemble a dual invitation. Lone shadows fade harmless. City Watch designates tavern lanes safe because of this custom. Fewer misunderstandings, fewer funerals. Should 2 friends insist on walking abreast, they lock elbows and sing a psalm, proving fellowship, not feud. Thus, song again serves as antidote to steel. Rule 95. Debt slate forgiveness. Once a season, during the first thunderstorm of spring, the innkeeper wipes half the chalk debts clean. Whichever names the rainwater dripping from the leaky roof smears first. Patrons sit beneath the slate, praying for drips upon their tab. Some even poke holes in shingles. The landlord overlooks minor sabotage. Rain-chosen mercy tastes sweeter than negotiated payment. Rule 96. Cat's Cradle Prophecy. Children loop string around fingers and solicit drunkards to predict future harvests from the shapes. A figure resembling a net? Bumper crop. A tangled mess? Blight. Adults laugh, yet secretly note the omen. The tavern cat often bats at the strings. If her paw tightens the cradle, prosperity doubles, says rumor. Farmers schedule sowing dates accordingly, proving grown men trust feline fate more than royal decrees. Rule 97 outlines the final reconciliation, what regulars call bench burial. Once in a rare while, 2 sworn enemies emerge at dawn, still locked in argument. They saw halfway through a bench, each holding one end, then bury the plank slice in the herb garden. Maple nourishes time. By late summer, both men gather sprigs over the grave and brew peace tea, sharing cups in silence. No one remembers the original grievance, only the flavor of time steeped in maple memory. The candles are guttering low. Trails of molten wax pool on scarred tablet tops, each puddle reflecting a miniature, quivering moon. Outside, a hush has settled over the street, that odd moment when night is no longer young, but not yet old enough to stiffen. Within those few breaths of stillness, the tavern rearranges its bones once again, trading the midday ledger of petty fines for the feral, pulse-quickening rites that govern what everyone secretly came for. The collision of body, voice, and steel threat that turns an ordinary alehouse into a fever dream of splinters, songs, and bruised pride. You can feel the change before it breaks the surface. Conversations shorten, tankards tip faster. Laughter has a serrated edge. Somewhere near the hearth, a player plucks a single discordant note on a lute. Not a melody, just a test of tension, like flicking the rim of a glass to hear if it cracks. That note vibrates through the floorboards, up the chair legs, into the soles of patrons' shoes, whispering, "We are approaching the hour when unwritten law puts on its iron mask. Let's lean into lamp glow and trace every invisible signature that seals tonight's coming brawls." Rule 98. The first cut belongs to the table. No human may draw first blood before furniture does. The table chooses its sacrifice, usually by shedding a splinter that pierces a palm, or by losing a leg so ale cascades onto someone's lap. Only then, with timber officially wounded, may fists fly. The superstition sprouted after a fatal duel where blood hit the floor before beer hit the boards. Patrons claim the ghost of that duel still drifts like cold smoke, driving sober men mad. Now they wait for the table's blessing. Barmaids swear you can predict which plank will go by listening for a faint creak that resolves into what sounds startlingly like laughter. Rule 99. Touch the beam, own the fight. Crisscrossing the ceiling are two ancient oak beams, blackened by centuries of hearth soot. Any combatant who leaps high enough to slap a palm against one beam declares himself owner of that specific brawl. Ownership confers rights. Choose weapons: tankard, stool, bare knuckles, select arena, near fire, by bar, outside, and set the forfeit stakes: coin, ale, apology in song. But ownership brings duty. If the fight spills past chosen borders or a bystander bleeds, the owner must pay the healer's fee. Few risk the beam unless booze has tied courage to lunacy. Still, on full moon nights, you'll see 4, 5, 6 men vault like desperate cats, palms slapping oak in echoing succession, the brawl already fracturing into micro-franchises. Rule 100. Lantern Law. The tavern has 3 lanterns hanging from iron hooks by the door. When only one burns, weapons smaller than a man's forearm are permitted. 2 lanterns burning means short swords may flash, but no blades longer than your shin. All 3 lanterns blazing? Anything goes, from quarterstaffs to boilmakers' axes. The innkeeper lights the lanterns according to how many city watch patrols he's seen pass. One patrol, one lantern, safe climate. None all evening? Best ignite the lot, invite chaos, and hope a conflagration burns out before the watch returns. Patrons keep half an eye on the hooks. The moment the third lantern flares, they tighten belts, adjust scabbards, and whisper wagers. Rule 101. The alewife's right of refusal. Every alewife learns a glance that could bridle a warhorse mid-charge. If she locks that stare upon you and merely raises an eyebrow, you must halt whatever blow you were about to swing and offer her your weapon's grip for inspection. She'll run a cloth over it, blessing or ridicule, no man can tell, then return it with a curt nod. Only then may you swing. Disobey, and you'll find every patron aligned against you, as though she were a saint whose shrine you profaned. Some fools ignore the eyebrow. They're lucky if they wake in the stables with straw stitching dried blood. Rule 102. Mock armor. Before the first fist is thrown, someone, spontaneously, like a spark leaping from logs, fashions armor from what lies mere. Frying pan breastplates, kettle helmets, door hinge gauntlets. The tradition stems from an old edict. Real armor inside city limits carried hefty fines, so drunks grew inventive. Over time, mock armor became badge of honor. The more absurd, the more courage implied. A man clad in roasting spit pauldrons might actually scare seasoned veterans. By rule, you cannot strike a foe until you salute his contraption, clacking your knuckles against whatever metal he strapped on. A bizarre courtesy, yes, but it slows battle long enough for onlookers to place bets. Rule 103. Broken tune amnesty. Musicians wield safety like a shield. If the brawl rages near their corner, they slam into a chaotic jig, rhythm stuttering like cracked wheels. Anyone hearing the broken tune gains amnesty if they freeze in place, tankard raised overhead. Momentum halts, fists hover mid-air. No one may strike a frozen figure. This lets wounded or innocent patrons escape, weaving like statues come alive only between drum beats. Once the musicians revert to proper rhythm, frozen bodies resume and fists complete their arcs. Outsiders call it nonsense. Veterans call it mercy wearing a fiddle's grin. Rule 104. Chalk line neutrality. Someone, usually the peacemaker, if sober, snaps a length of chalk across the floor, dividing space into two rival realms, north and south. Combatants choose sides. Neutral drinkers remain astride the line on stools dubbed bridge seats. Set foot on enemy timber and you accept any blow. Yet cups may cross freely. Barmaids deliver ale over the line to ensure commerce never flees. More than one feud ends mid-fight when someone realizes the opposing team's jug of mead looks tastier. A silent truce forms. They swap beverages, then forget why they swung blades at all. Rule 105. Ceiling hook asylum. A cast iron meat hook dangles over the bar. Leap, grab, and hang, both feet clear of the floor, and you claim asylum for the time it takes to recite any benediction you know. But your recitation must be word perfect. Stumble, and asylum voids. The hook is slick with candle smoke. Palms sweat under terror. Many choose a short prayer. Lord have mercy. Only 3 words, but still enough to shake out of a pursuer's incoming punch. Regulars chalk tally marks on the beam for every successful asylum, turning survival into scoreboard. Rule 106. Blood for bread equivalence. Should blood spill on the main table, it must be sopped with the heel of a loaf, no cloth. The soaked bread is then baked into the next day's stew loaf, a strange, iron-rich dumpling fed to stray dogs at dawn. Townfolk believe this ritual averts plague by gifting canine guardianship. Fail to honor the equivalence, and rumors spread that demons smell the unoffered blood, tracing it back to the guilty tavern. This rumor alone has saved more washing rags than any laundress's plea. Rule 107. Candle draft duel. If two swordsmen square off, but neither wants lethal escalation, they each light a candle and place them at opposite ends of the mantelpiece. Blades clang. First gust of displaced air to extinguish an opponent's candle wins. Skill lies in controlled swings, catching just enough breeze. Loser buys winner a flask. If both flames survive 5 exchanges, duel converts into dice match. Observers stand breath held, mindful that even exhaling toward a flame brands them accomplice to unfair victory. Rule 108. Salt circle for healers. When wounds inevitably open, the healer, often same quack from noon, sprinkles salt in a ring around patient and kneels within. No fighter may breach the salt. Violators incur collective retribution. A dozen tankard bottoms thumping skull until they're rolled outside. Salt costs dear, yet the innkeeper supplies scoops gratis. He'd rather underwrite peace than scrub blood from cracks. Rule 109. Ash mark of surrender. To yield, dip finger in hearth ash and draw a single line down nose. Instantly untouchable. Any who strike an ash-marked foe must publicly drink a mug of boiled turnip brine, scalding and vile. Pride keeps most from throwing after surrender. The ash becomes badge of survival. Some veterans carry permanently darkened noses layered from dozens of fights like tree rings of defeat and wisdom. Rule 110. The Watcher's Song. Hidden among rafters sits the Watcher, a volunteer or punished debtor perched on a plank, granted endless ale refills. His only duty? Sing louder as violence intensifies, softer as it wanes. Song acts as barometer. Townsfolk outside judge when it's safe to enter. If the Watcher's voice cracks, that's code for blades drawn. Twice cracked, crossbows present. The system predates official curfews. City Watch uses it too, loitering near windows until song softens before bursting in to collect fines. Rule 111. The Brawl Bell. A small, dented handbell sits beside the hearth. Any participant who feels the fight tipping toward mortal danger may seize it and clang. At first ring, all weapons must freeze. At second, on-site wagers pay out early. At third, the bell ringer drops to knees, offering themselves as human shield between combatants. Striking the bell kneeler brings lifelong exile from every alehouse in the guild, a punishment akin to social death. Thus, the bell seldom needs a third toll. Rule 112. Memory pints. At evening's end, for every injury requiring stitches, The healer records the victim's name on a slate, beside tally marks counting pint glasses purchased in their honor by friends or foes. Memory pints ensure wounds commodify into coin. Some boast more pints than stitches. They limp for weeks, but feel celebrated. Without memory pints, bitterness might linger. With them, scars become conversation starters. See this ear? Bought me 6 pints and a kiss from the tanner's widow. Rule 113. The sober witness. Law demands one sober person at any brawl to testify later, but who stays sober willingly? The tavern solves it with a ginger water chalice shaped like a bull's head. Whoever happens to drink ginger water first that night, often a travel-sick pilgrim, becomes the witness, symbolized by the empty chalice hung round neck with ribbon. All must clear path for the witness, who wanders taking mental notes. Witness receives free lodging and breakfast, plus exemption from broomline duels. Some entrepreneurs intentionally claim ginger water, later selling testimony to whichever side offers more coin. Moral grayness sanctified by ribbon. Rule 114. Post-brawl choir. When embers fade and bruises pulse, survivors gather near the doorframe and sing a 3-line chant. Al forgives. Blood forgets. Bench menders settle bets. The chant's melody is childish, the harmony ragged, yet city elders decree it a binding verbal contract. Once sung, no grudges follow beyond threshold. Miss the chant and you're fair game tomorrow. Thus, even unconscious brawlers are propped upright, heads lolling, mouths coaxed to mumble syllables. Better slur than suffer feud. Rule 115. Sunrise sealing. Should brawl persist until first rooster crow, participants must halt, exchange left gloves, and march arm in arm to nearest bridge, tossing gloves into river. The gesture drowns the fight. Folktale claims river sprites consume anger like bread. True or not, dawn fights seldom resume. Husbands return home minus gloves and excuses. Wives stitch new pairs muttering, "Next time, keep quarrel under rooster." By now, lamps hiss their final breaths. Moonbeams slant across a battlefield littered with overturned stools, fractured pride, and those intangible debts that only laughter or shared hangovers will absolve. Somewhere in the corner, the peacemaker's slate shows 3 icons still uncircled: a cracked lute, dripping cask, and tiny boot, meaning the flower-filled bladders await dawn's duel. The hearth yawns, swallowing the last ash-marked surrenders as though secrecy were nourishment. Morning hasn't truly arrived. It's only negotiating with night. A chalk-pale glow seeps beneath the shutters, turning spilled ale into silver puddles and transforming every bruise-purple shadow into the faint memory of a fist that forgot why it clenched. You're standing in the hush that follows thunder, that uncanny hour when tavern benches look embarrassed by their own broken legs, and even the hearth pretends it never roared blood-red encouragement a few hours ago. Outside, the city's first baker hoists a tray of unbaked loaves toward his oven and wonders why the street smells faintly of sweat, salt, and overcooked courage. Inside, the patrons who survived the unwritten rules now face the unwritten consequences, and that final ledger is longer, stranger, and somehow softer than the one inked by any bailiff. The peacemaker's slate rests on the bar. 3 icons remain uncircled, exactly as we left them. Cracked lute, dripping cask, child-sized boot. Each symbol a promise deferred to sunrise. Tradition demands these debts be settled before the front door unlatches for lawful daylight trade. Already, the peacemaker shuffles across sticky floorboards, chalk poised like a priest's aspergillum, ready to bless or condemn. You can almost hear the slate mutter, "Tally me quickly, friend, regret is lighter before breakfast." First up, the cracked lute. Its owner, the tavern's resident balladeer, Hodge One String, sits cross-legged on the cellar steps, cradling the instrument's broken neck as if it were a wounded bird. The neck split clean when 2 combatants tried to parry tankards with its soundboard. Unwritten Rule 24, we never covered it, but locals know. Musicians harmed in the line of melody shall receive reparations in the currency they value most, silence, so they may heal their dignity. Thus, all surviving brawlers must now stand in absolute hush while Hodge plays whatever tune he can coax from the remaining strings. He begins plucking, hesitant at first, then braver, and the melody flutters through beams still scented with smoke. Patrons press palms to lips, suppress giggles at sour notes, because laughter breaks Rule 15. Mock not the healing song. When Hodge finishes, the room answers with a single nod. Chalk scrapes. A circle encloses the lute icon. Debt paid. Hodge tucks the mutilated instrument under his arm, pride intact. Next, the dripping cask. During last night's chaos, someone, evidence points to a one-eyed cooper named Magda, hacked into a firkin of strong ale, flooding half the floor. The innkeeper didn't cry over spilt drink. He measured its depth against his boot and calculated the lost coin. To reimburse him, Rule 69 requires a communal thieves' pour. Every guilty soul relinquishes 1 gulp from their personal tankard into an empty barrel until volume equals the loss. Problem: no fresh ale remains, only the dregs. Undaunted, the peacemaker prepares a funnel, and 23 patrons line up like penitents, tilting mugs so last drops plink into the barrel with forlorn echoes. Plink, plink, plink. The resulting liquid is a muddy mosaic of stout, mead, cider, tears, and a stray olive. Unfit for any human, it is ceremonially presented to the tavern's mouser, a scarred tom named Bramble. Bramble sniffs, sneezes, and saunters away. Official verdict delivered. Liquid is then poured onto the hearth's still glowing embers, releasing a hiss that sounds suspiciously like applause. Chalk circles the dripping cask. 2 debts down. Finally, the tiny boot. It represents collateral damage to innocence. Sometime after the 3rd lantern lit, a visiting choir boy, errands for the cathedral, found himself trapped between brawling boots, his own leather shoe torn from his foot. No harm came to him. He'd scrambled atop the bar and recited the broken tune's lyrics until rescued. Still, Rule 87 insists the lost article be replaced with something finer. Hence, Dawn's last task: craft a new pair of boots before the cathedral's morning mass tolls. Impossible? Not in a tavern where broken stools supply leather and flower bladders provide thread when twisted and dried. The tailor of this motley crew, old Tessa, whose needle once stitched king's saddles, commandeers a table, snips upholstery, and coaxes several drunk volunteers into punching eyelets with dagger points. Minutes tick. Outside, bells chime quarter till sun. The room's attention flickers between Tessa's racing hands and the door latch, imagining stern clergy footsteps. When towers finally boom the full hour, Tessa ties the last knot, wipes brow, and presents boots so mismatched they look like siblings who never agreed on hair color. The choir boy, eating free porridge by the hearth, grins wide enough to swallow worry. Chalk circles the boot, debt ledger complete.
But dawn rituals aren't finished. The floor still holds last night's secrets. Muddy heel prints charting duels, soot smears from ash-marked surrenders. Someone must sweep, mop, and scatter rosemary sprigs to mask the metallic ghost of blood. Enter the broomline duelists, two patrons who wagered flower bladders during the melee and now must duel by sweeping. They face off, broom tips crossing, posture noble as any palace guard. Rule 90 commands, duelists sweep toward each other, not away, gradually piling debris into one central mound, symbolic of conflict converging to shared responsibility. Onlookers clap rhythmically, counting strokes. 10, 20, 30. At 45, broom heads collide. Flower blossom bursts into air, catching sunbeams so each mote looks gilt. Duel ends in draw when both laugh, wheeze, and collapse onto benches. The mound of refuse remains, proof that penance wore a playful grin. Now comes the sunrise ceiling. The rooster, 2 streets away atop a tanner's coop, unleashes a crow like rusty hinges. Instantly, bodies rouse, groaning. They fish from pockets any glove, scarf, or ribbon. Pairs form, left gloves traded, arms linked. Out the tavern door they shamble, some limping, others humming memory pints blessings. You follow, boots skimming puddles glowing peach in first light. Down the lane, over cobbles damp with dew, laughter echoes between shuttered shops. At the bridge, they hurl gloves into water. Splashes ripple toward stone piers, each ring carrying away last traces of anger. Back inside, the innkeeper lifts shutter bars. Sunlight knifes across tables now swept clean. In that golden stripe, you see the tavern's scars. Nail holes, scorch marks, initials carved by bored mercenaries. None will ever vanish. Each night merely adds another layer of story lacquer. Before daylight customers arrive, there is one final rite: the post-brawl choir. Survivors scatter across floorboards, voices ragged from ale, yet melody warm as bread. Ale forgives, blood forgets. Bench menders settle bets. 3 lines, softly at first, then loud enough to rattle tankards drying on hooks. The chant swirls up the chimney, out into morning sky, where it will mingle with chimney smoke from bakeries and blacksmith forges, turning into something like civic harmony. When last note fades, each singer exhales, eyes gleaming not with triumph, but with relief. They are free of last night's weight. And that, friend perched behind the invisible camera lens, is how a tavern's unwritten constitution patrols the frontier between pleasure and peril.
how secret lantern codes, flower-filled bladders, and chalk line neutrality shape violence into ritual, ensuring bruises heal into anecdotes rather than vendettas. It's messy, it's absurd, it's oddly humane. Maybe, as you sink beneath your blankets tonight, you'll picture that meat hook swinging gently, that salt circle guarding wounded pride, that single candle's flicker deciding whether swords stay sheathed. And perhaps you'll whisper thanks that your worst quarrel is whether to watch the next video or close your eyes. If you did feel the tavern's pulse throb through your headphones, if you could almost taste the coppery tang of adrenaline mingled with spilt ale, then slip a little modern courtesy into our digital tip jar. Smash that like button until the algorithm raises an eyebrow. Subscribe so you never miss another midnight ramble through history's weirder back alleys. And ring the bell, the YouTube one, not the tavern's, so notifications hit faster than a ceiling hook asylum prayer. Drop your favorite bar fight survival tip, real or hilariously imagined, in the comments. I read them all while nursing my own storytelling hangover. 7 parts, 7 lanterns worth of shadow and shenanigans. And now the sun is firmly up, yawning through your curtains. Time to let brain fog settle like dust after a good sweep. Rest easy, traveler. The rules will still be there tomorrow night, waiting to right themselves on fresh bruises. Until our next sleepy escapade, keep your fists gentle, your oaths bizarre, and your benches mended. Good night, or rather good morning.